Korea.
In the mountains of North Korea, winter of 1950, temperatures plunged 40 degrees below zero. On those frozen hills, surrounded by hundreds of thousands of enemy troops, 30,000 US and UN soldiers fought their way out of encirclement in one of the most brutal battles in modern history. This is the story of the Battle of the Chosin, or as the Marines who fought there called it, the Frozen Chosin. The Korean War began in June 1950, when the North Korean People's Army surged across the 38th parallel, overwhelming South Korea. The United Nations, led by the United States, pushed back. By November, UN forces under General Douglas MacArthur had driven the enemy deep into the mountains of North Korea. Many believed the war was all but won. MacArthur promised the troops they would be home by Christmas. But across the Yalu River, nearly 300,000 Chinese soldiers were quietly crossing into Korea under the cover of night. The Chosin Reservoir, deep in the rugged mountains, was a strategic position near the border with China. The U.S. 1st Marine Division, commanded by Major General Oliver P. Smith, advanced into those mountains. They were told resistance would be light, but Smith sensed danger. He slowed the advance and ordered engineers to improve roads and build supply points, precautions that would soon save thousands of lives. On the night of November 27th, the silence shattered. Tens of thousands of Chinese soldiers from the 9th Army Group launched a massive surprise attack. Bugles blared, mortars thumped, and waves of troops poured out of the dark hills. The 1st Marine Division, about 15,000 strong, was surrounded. Through the blizzard and chaos, isolated units fought to hold their positions. Fox Company was pinned down on a frozen hilltop, radioing desperate calls for help. At Toktong Pass, a vital mountain choke point, Chinese forces threw everything they had to cut off the only road south. The cold was unlike anything the Marines had ever faced. Engines froze solid, weapons malfunctioned, blood plasma turned to ice, frostbite hit thousands. Wounds that would have been survivable under normal conditions became deadly. One Marine said later, "Your breath froze your eyelashes together. You couldn't cry. The tears would freeze." Yet, despite the conditions, discipline and training held. They fought, rested, then fought again. Realizing the division couldn't hold its position, General Smith made a bold decision. They wouldn't retreat. His words became legend. "We're not retreating. We're just attacking in another direction." The Marines would fight their way south, bringing their wounded, their dead, and their heavy equipment through 78 miles of winding mountain roads, all while surrounded by superior numbers. The breakout began. Step by step, hill by hill, the Marines advanced towards the village of Hagaruri. U.S. air support from F-4U Corsairs and B-26 bombers pounded Chinese positions. Pilots flew through snowstorms to drop supplies and napalm, providing the Marines just enough cover to keep moving. Taillights were forbidden, one truck designated as a lead light for the entire convoy. Every mile was contested. Every pass had to be cleared by hand and guarded under fire. Amid the agony, stories of camaraderie emerged. Marines shared rations, carried the wounded on makeshift sleds, and pulled them behind tanks. Army and Marine units fought side by side, covering each other's flanks. The bond forged in that frozen wasteland became unbreakable. At Toktong Pass, Fox Company held for 5 days against relentless assaults. 246 men against thousands, refusing to abandon the road. When relief finally arrived, only a fraction of the company could still stand. As the Marines pushed south, disaster struck. A bridge section ahead had been destroyed. Without it, they were trapped. Then came one of the most incredible feats of the war. U.S. Air Force engineers airdropped prefabricated bridge sections using massive C-119 flying boxcars. In blinding cold, engineers assembled the bridge over a chasm, allowing the column to pass. It was an engineering miracle and their ticket to survival. After 2 weeks of fighting, the remnants of the 1st Division reached the port of Hungnam. They brought with them every wounded man they could carry, leaving nothing for the enemy. The Chinese had thrown 120,000 soldiers into the battle. Over half became casualties. The Marines, though battered, had destroyed 7 enemy divisions and escaped annihilation. At Hungnam, they evacuated by sea 98,000 troops and civilians. The withdrawal marked not a defeat, but an act of endurance unmatched in modern warfare. The survivors of that ordeal call themselves the Chosen Few. To this day, they meet and remember the brothers who never made it home. Their motto, to the men who fought and the men who fell. The Battle of the Chosin Reservoir was not just a military engagement. It was proof of courage under impossible circumstances. Surrounded by frozen and outnumbered, the Marines showed the world that valor isn't measured by victory alone, but by endurance, loyalty, and the will to fight on. In the frozen mountains of North Korea, amid snow and fire, they fought their way into history. The men of the Chosin Reservoir proved what it means to be unbreakable, even when the whole world turns to ice around you.